Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Pac-Man here once again, and I'm back for yet again for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Wii Party for the Nintendo Wii. So I believe in last Sunday, we have managed able to play the unseen minigames during the course of in free play mode, and that was actually pretty fun, all things considered. Well, despite the fact that we actually come across into 2 draws, but that's okay, because I just want to show those minigames are for reals. So today, for this particular video, especially noticeable in the next few videos later, we're about to begin the forms of the challenge mode. So, a set of challenging minigames, some might look familiar at first, but they are actually a much deeper experience. So, yeah, I do apologize for that particular commentary. It gets a little bit iffy at this point today, which I'll explain more now in a moment. So as you can see, we actually stumbled across into ourselves 7 minigames. So there's Marching Orders, Golden Gridlock, Hidden Charms, Shifty Gifts, which are basically now challenge variations of those 2 right here, along with the forms of Tippy Transverse and Banana Blockade, and finally, the puzzle minigame in this game, which appears to be About Face. So, as you can see on screen is the fact that those 4 minigames on top are actually single player only, whilst in the forms within the bottom segment on this particular menu screen, as you can tell, About Face is basically a puzzle minigame like I said before, and as you can tell, it did say 1 to 4 players. However, for Tippy Transverse, especially noticeable with Banana Blockade, those 2 minigames are locked behind 2 player only. So because of that, unfortunately, we can't show those 2 off right here, which is kind of a shame, because even then though, that would be pretty interesting. Although, what I've noticed is the fact that on Tippy Transverse, it's like 1 attempt kind of record run, and also when it comes to the forms of Banana Blockade, I think it's like a stage-based minigame, so you can choose whatever stage you want to go to, so that was worth mentioning. So, in this time around though, for our me choice, we are selecting Luigi this time. So, find all of the objects in each painting that are slightly different from the rest. There are 6 kinds of paintings and 30 stages in all. If you reach the last set, you might see a familiar face. Oh, I might be curious about this one though. Although, kind of think about it, this minigame plays out exactly like the actual one of those pair minigames, so in this case, Hidden Charms. So in this case though, we need to find specific amount of those symbols that we can find. So in this case, we do need to find the 4-leaf clovers right here. So, oh, how the heck did I somehow manage to lose time here? Okay, that's a bit odd and weird at the same time. So, yeah, while this is going on, today's day is of course the, I think today it's the 16th of July today, in this case in 2022 today, and the reason why I did manage to able to say this earlier, I do apologize if my commentary is a little bit iffy at this point today, is most likely because, well, suffice to say, for those of you who lived in the UK, prepare yourselves was perhaps one of the hottest days we've ever gonna have to come across into in the next couple of days, to be more specifically, not only tomorrow, but Monday and Tuesday as well, because the heat wave is approaching. So because of this though, I have to drink lots at this point today, specifically water, and also on top of all that stuff though, I have to keep my window open at all times, so just in case I need to get some fresh air in. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, I mean, there were a few times that you might able to actually hear those birds keep on like yelping and stuff like that, but as a result of that kind of stuff though, it usually happens most of the time, so yeah, I do apologize for that. So and also another thing is worth mentioning for this point as well, is the fact that, well, relatively speaking, we're actually getting pretty close towards the very end of the forms of this particular game so far, to be more specifically with Wii Party, so because of this though, oh, and another thing as well, recently Ray has finally finished up with his Let's Play of SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, so at the very least we're most able to take a break on SpongeBob Let's Plays anytime soon, until God knows until when the Cosmic Shake is going to happen, or in some cases though, about the fact that, well, we might as well able to still guarantee we might as well able to do the SpongeBob SquarePants movie video game, to be more specifically the PlayStation 2 game. So because of this though, although let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day, are you about to be able to assure to you about the fact that I'm also going to be tackling for the Game Boy Advance version as well? Because usually between the console version and the Game Boy Advance versions, they're all played out very differently. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, the actual structure of these two games specifically, they are exactly the same, aside with the forms of their different gameplay style and all that stuff. But yeah, as you can see on screen on, you know, Hidden Charms, as you can see right there, despite I'm low on time, basically, if you somehow manage to find all of those specific spots in the picture, basically though is the fact that you will move on to the next stage, and then you will add in 10 seconds. But, unfortunately though, as you can tell right there, I didn't seem able to go further than that, because, well, as far as I'm aware, it is very, very difficult, honestly. Especially noticeable, if you get this wrong, basically you lose time. So because of that though, I literally did try right there. Much like the forms of balance mode, I think this is the only game mode I'm pretty much not great at it. So because of that though, forgive me if I somehow managed to budge anything else to be more specific. But anyways, let's move on to Shifty Gifts. So obviously the rules remains the same, except on the forms of in rules 2 on the other hand. As the presents pile up higher and higher, the wind will blow harder and more vehicles will zoom by, including bikes, including other me's as well. So we have to be very cautious about this. So anyway, while this is going on also, that I've recently managed to able to download quite a number of things. Well, nothing much, but at the very least recently I've managed to able to pick up another digital download game, to be more specifically, comes from the PlayStation 3. And also say applies with the Xbox 360 as well, meaning about the fact that I finally managed to able to go myself the actual lost challenges from the sake of the forms of Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. So potentially speaking, God knows if we decide to do that game, possibly during at some point next year if possible. Well, along with the forms of Banjo Pilot for the Game Boy Advance if we decided to. But as a result of that kind of stuff though, I think we should be all set when it comes to likely preparing for that. Well, despite the fact that most people are not a big fan of nuts and bolts to begin with, just because of this god-awful redesign. And, excuse me, Mario? Anyway, so as a result of that kind of stuff though, also, I finally managed to able to actually go myself Castle Evolution starring Mickey Mouse from the likes of, well, the remake of the game on the PlayStation 3, as well as the Xbox 360 versions as well. Why? Because I also figured that maybe at some point, oh, speaking of Mickey Mouse, he's running away from that particular barrel and all that stuff, while I'm actually just trying to able to chase after the barrel at the same time. So, because as a result though, maybe at some point, despite the fact that, well, there won't be any uploading schedules for the sake of Monday or Wednesday for that matter, I figure I was able to play a Mickey Mouse game for a change. Well, despite the fact that we haven't exactly done one of those yet, so either way though, we're all just trying to figure this out though, especially noticeable because I think relatively speaking for that part, is the fact that until next year actually, that's specifically in 2023, that Mickey Mouse, the actual mascot of Disney, will able to become about, let's just say 95 years old during that time? But either way though, we'll see what happens during that time. So, anyways, and I'm just gonna have to able to carefully try to adjust my balancing for this particular stack of presents and all that stuff, and it looks like I somehow managed to beat the record, so, I feel a little bit more, pleased for myself, especially noticeable despite in, Hidden Charms that I somehow managed able to become. I'm not very great at it though, especially noticeable because the actual screen just somehow zoomed out and stuff like that. Well, most of the time, well, I just have no idea why he's saying things weirdly enough, because again, like I said before, it's just the fact that the actual heat wave might actually give me a lot of sweat recently, so, but don't worry, I'm fine as it is, especially noticeable I've drank a lot of water, because trust me, you have to drink a lot of water while in a state, so just to give yourselves just keep yourself alive, so that's all that really matters. So anyway, another thing I would like to mention is the fact that recently we actually got ourselves, oh, and another thing as well, during the course of my Xbox 360, for the sake of the Avatar store, I also managed to get myself a Chaos Emeralds accessory based off from Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1. Why? because, you know, I'm a huge Sonic fan, as you already know. So as a result, though, I'm super pumped about the forms of... Ah, dang it, Sonic and Pinkie Pie, you somehow managed to ruin my balancing for those gifts. But it doesn't matter, though, because I've got my new record, which is 3 minutes and 17 seconds and 6 milliseconds as well, so I appreciate about that. So anyways, I think since that this video is kind of super short so far, I think we should probably be focusing on this last minigame for this point today. And until tomorrow, we're pretty much going to be focusing on marching order. So anyways, so let's get to About Face. And as you can see, we have 3 different modes to select with. There's the solo version, 1 vs 1, and 4-player minigames. So let's go for all 3 modes combined. So let's get started. Line up 4 of a kind horizontally and vertically. To score points, if any of the bars on the right fill up, it's game over. Okay, so we have to consider watch out for that. The bars fill up slowly and go down if you clear panels. Get extra points by clearing more in quick succession. Hold the Wiimote horizontally and use directional pad to move your square. Rotate the faces by pressing 1 and 2. Yeah, because as I said, it's basically a puzzle minigame, so... I'm not exactly sure if I was gonna go for the high score in this minigame though, because for what I've played it, on my spare own time, that I'm not great at this either, mainly because of how the fact that I have to be so fast on specific combos you got to put up with, or maybe because I'm pretty much used to with all that, you know, a serious amount of those mini-games from the Mario Party games for the sake of the puzzle-based mini-games, because I'm more accustomed to those, honestly, especially noticeable because, relatively speaking, because usually it's all about, like, wow, I'm always into those kind of stuff, though, because the thing is, with the forms of this particular puzzle minigame of any sort about Face, that sometimes I'm not exactly the master at it, though. That's the only prime example I was going to be trying to say things correctly, but either way, though, he knows what it is, I guess. So, anyway, so let's get into another discussion for this point today, and that is the fact that some 2 new things has been happening for the sake of the forms of just recently. Although, there are a few problems with it though, like, I'll get into more now details in a second. Recently, we're actually getting ourselves a new release trailer, thus, with the forms of the release date, about time actually, for those of you the Bayonetta fans out there. Yes, Bayonetta 3, not only does it get ourselves a new release, you know, not only the forms of a new trailer, but also a brand new release date. And that game is going to due out at some point in October, the same month as Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. So, and this time around though, it's going to be on Friday, not Thursday though, because on Thursday we will definitely going to be getting Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Speaking of that game actually, recently I did manage to somehow, for some reason, pre-order the game. In an early state if possible. Well, that's only mainly because I was so desperate able to actually just to pre-order that game. And I think the version I've somehow pre-ordered was actually the normal version, because I was originally trying to able to get the 2 other variations of the game, specifically the Gold Edition or the Cosmic Edition. So, but unfortunately though, I somehow chose the actual standard version because, let's face it though, I'm pretty much a big fan of the forms of the full box art view, because I'm not a big fan of the forms of how the fact that with certain banners somehow managed able to block the actual box art image. Well, that's probably just me anyway though. So as a result though, although don't get me wrong, I will try to plan my suggestions to able to actually decide to plan out to get the DLC stuff eventually, once the game actually finally comes out for the sake of the forms of October. So either way though, that may be suggestions by that point. So anyway, so with that being said, with Bayonetta 3, it's finally got its release date, like I said before, and the release date for that game is going to be on, as I said, on Friday, and it's going to be on the 28th of October. So that's literally about 3 days before Halloween, so we can pretty much expect about the fact that Bayonetta fans will be very happy to able to hear that particular new release date for that game. So, and it's about time too, because it's been about, you know what I mean, 5 years since we've last heard about the forms of, since when Bayonetta 3 was first announced, back in the forms of in the Game Awards in 2017. So, yeah, about time actually. and I've actually got about 504 points, so nothing groundbreaking honestly, but it knows what it is for the most part. So yeah, that's the solo version of this particular minigame right here. And now let's move on to the other two mode variations of this minigame, such as 1 versus 1, so we can pretty much expect we'll have some competition here by able to actually face off against with, I honestly have no clue, just because, well, relatively speaking, that, unfortunately though, because of my laptop is actually getting a little bit laggy at this point, especially because, well, relatively speaking, yeah. Line up 4 faces of a kind to score points, well, you get the idea. So, although the roles might be played out exactly the same, except that as you can tell, that in order able to actually just to win this minigame, we need to rank up points. So, as a result of that kind of stuff though, yeah, the entire game mode plays out exactly the same, aside from, you know, just different roles and stuff like that. And also you got plenty of time. Like, I think you're able to start the minigame off as in 2 minutes or so. So, it might take a while to able to finish sometimes, but at the very least though, it is super duper quick, so... Anyway, and another thing they did brings us into when it comes to Bayonetta 3, that is the fact that, well, obviously they did reveal the Special Edition Collector's Edition recently, and I think it actually comes with not only the game itself, but also with the forms of the art book or something like that. Mind you, I haven't exactly looked upon it that much of collector's editions these days, because some of them are really hard to find right about now, and also, as far as I can tell, that, usually, when it comes to, like, getting the, collector's edition variations of certain Nintendo Switch games, though I'm not a big fan of about the fact that they just somehow managed to get rid of the Peggy logo, along with the forms of how the fact that you get yourselves a different colored triangular thing on the spine, while that only exists on the European versions, well, along with the Australian versions as well, I guess. But, when it comes to everything else, though, oh, and another thing, speaking of which, when it comes to Bayonetta and stuff like that, another thing is worth mentioning for is the fact that they were planning to able to do a physical standalone version of Bayonetta 1 for the sake of the forms of the Nintendo Switch during at some point in this coming September. So because of this though, yeah, gee, no wonder why that back in 2018 that I first thought that Bayonetta 1 is going to be digital only back then, for the sake of the forms of 2018, along with the actual special bundle with, you know, Bayonetta 2, as in the Wii U port to the, actually, kind of think about it, a Switch port to a Wii U game back in the day. So I'm guessing every now and then now is the fact that the first Bayonetta game is going to get ourselves the actual standard physical release this time, so no need for additional download codes or anything else like that. So, couldn't imagine about the fact that if someone's trying to get Bayonetta 2 physical version at some point or another, then I honestly have no clue. So, hooray, I won! Especially noticeable, I managed to go myself some very good point streak. So, yeah, I guess that's that. So now let's move on to the 4-player version, which I think the 4-player version of this minigame is exactly the same as 1 versus 1, except the fact that we now need to, you know, compete with the other 3 people. So, obviously the rules are the same, so there's not much else to discuss, so we can pretty much expect that we're able to kick their butts. So, oh, and another thing I would like to mention about this as well, I'm very happy to report that we're actually getting ourselves another Kirby game this year, but this time around though is another eShop exclusive game. And this time around though is actually kind of a fun one, and that's what appears to be body forms of Kirby's Dream, Bufflet. So, yeah, that's actually pretty cool. And from what I've seen a trailer, it does kind of reminds me, it's like a combination of, like a Fall Guys kind of thing, as well as the forms of, Kirby Air Ride, and especially noticeable with the forms of Kirby Tilt and Tumble, and heck, even especially noticeable with the forms of, with the forms of Gourmet Arrays. So it's like 4 things combined into one. Because obviously, if I've seen a trailer, it does look kind of fun. Even especially noticeable about the fact that, well, it's a good thing about the fact that the online compatibility, it does exist, for the sake of the forms of Kirby's Dream Buffet. So even then though, that the trailer itself looks absolutely adorable. So, and it's going to be releasing sometime this summer. I'm not exactly sure when though, but we'll see what happens in due time. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, I'm actually really looking forward to it though, especially noticeable after the events of the amazing success of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So we can pretty much expect that we might as well able to get quite a few Kirby stuff during the forms within the next couple of months or so. Well, I may be wrong, but recently about the fact that 2022 is actually going to be a really good year for Kirby, as to be expected, because, you know, Kirby is now 30 years old, so because of that though, you noticed about the fact that we already got the first true 3D Kirby game, which is of course Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and now we're having ourselves Kirby's Dream Buffet for the sake of the forms of the eShop exclusive title. So yeah, because it looks like we're now down to 5 Kirby games so far, for the sake of the forms of, well, to be more specifically, when it comes to this year so far. So, well, actually, gotta think about it, 5 Kirby games in the entire Nintendo Switch's lifespan. So, 2 physical stuff, or specifically mainstream games, and 3 eShop exclusive titles. So yeah, that's something it's worth noting for. And I somehow win again because of the combo break. So with that being said though, I think suffice to say we're going to end things off at this point right here, so join me tomorrow for more of Let's Play of Wii Party. That will pretty much going to be focusing on the next minigame in terms of challenge mode. That's what appears to be Marching Orders, which I'll explain more details about that until whenever we get to tomorrow's case. So yeah, I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later fellas.